the West Country, famous for fox hunting. But fox hunting is not for me. Horses I just don't get on with. Led by huntsman Ian Coggle, these are the 3 counties mink hounds.
So the Welsh would be the rough-haired ones?
Yeah, the roughness comes from the odd hands. There's a pure odd hand there. Cheerful, 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 cheerful. Cheerful's called cheerful because she's the most...
He looks like
the
a
least cheerful.
He's got a knot of head on him, hasn't he?
Yeah, that's a pure odd hand. That's registered with a kennel. But they're not the brightest hand in the world compared to the fox hands. A bit of a cross gives them a bit more vigour and makes them sort of stronger and more sensible. Cheerful, cheerful. She's got a very good nose, but she's got an IQ of about 8. Come on. And it's not always, you can't always get the 8 bits.
So which is the bright one then? Point out the bright one to me.
Ranger, Ranger, Ranger.
This one?
He got a degree from the SAS, he did, didn't you, boy? He's just, that's a very sort of tough...
How old is he? He looks as if he's a... What?
Oh, he's 6-year-old.
6 or 7?
6-year-old. That's pure English foxhound. That's a cross between a Welsh foxhound and an English foxhound, David.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pure foxhound.
Big.
This is slightly different from other forms of hunting in that you want a bit of specialisation. Rather, it's a bit more like a football team than a tug-of-war team.
So you don't mind whether they're English, Irish, Scotch or Welsh, as long as they do the job?
I mean, you see that dog, yeah, that dog there, Candle, come here, Candle, stop scratching your head, come on, Candle. See, that dog is very good at hunting a mink once you find him, and until you find a mink, he won't do a thing. He'll just toddle along behind, and he won't open his mouth till he finds one. On the other hand, you've got a hand like Bardoff. He's got a very sensitive nose.
He'll be the leader, will he?
And he's one of the hands that will hunt the line before you get to the mink, and hunt what we call a drag, which is the overnight scent left by the mink. But once you find it, whilst his sensitive nose is still operating, he hasn't got the physique, he hasn't got the musculature and the power that some of these foxhounds have to actually hunt it. So he tends to get a bit, he still hunts, but he tends to get a bit eclipsed by him. Baggage, you see, I mean, baggage is a little tiny thing, but she's very crafty, aren't you, Baggage? Hey, Baggage, oh, yes, you are. And old Baggage is very good at finding them too, aren't you, Baggage? And at a hole, you see, if their hands are inclined to say he's gone in a hole, this little bitch, she'll come along and have a sniff, and if she says no, then it's not right.
We've got a couple of terriers there. Do you use them at all?
Yes, I mean, the problem with mink very often is that they go to ground when you're hunting them, and obviously a mink is only about the size of Ranger's nose, so it's very difficult it's impossible for them to follow them in.
So you put the terriers in?
Yeah, when you dig in, they'll tell you where they are.
What made you start?
Well, it was really popular demand from the farming community just around where we first started. They knew we were quite good at catching things, and so they wanted us to have a go at the mink, which was going to be a bit of a pest. So we got a few terriers together and a few of my old beagles, and we started that way. And we used to go to the meet and produce a photograph of the mink and show it to the terriers and the beagles, and off they'd go. Off they'd go looking for something that vaguely fitted that description. I mean, the terriers were quite happy to chase anything, and the beagles were looking for hares, so it was wasn't too good to start with, but then we finally got a hand, chap gave us a hand that could hunt mink.
And the rest followed?
And once he taught them how to do it, they all followed in, yeah. I mean,
so they actually know what they're looking for when we go out this morning?
Yeah. I mean, these boys only do hunt mink, you know. That's, otherwise we all fall out, don't we, lads?
The mink is not native to Britain. The originals escaped from fur farms in the 50s and 60s, and they adapted so well that they're now common throughout the country. They're also very unpopular with just about everybody, because they're ferocious killers of fish, birds, and in fact anything of a reasonable size which comes their way. Mink love water, so hunting always takes place on a river or a stream. Luckily, mink hunting is a summer activity, so a warm day by the river is a pleasant prospect. For everyone, that is, except Cheerful.
You are a fool. Stop it.
Yeah, silly old fool. Good, John, you.
Hello. Good boy.
Come on behind. Come behind.
Come behind.
Never done that before. Ryan's as lame as a cat. Behind.
toes are roaming. You find it, John? Down this bank. Better going on this bank. Well, we done it a bit of a difficult. We know! Yeah. Hey! We know! We know! Whoop! Whoop!
Some tracks here, but still no interest from the hounds. Mind you, the tracks could be days old. To get the hounds going, we need some of the scent of last night's mink activity. I'm glad the water's warm, but I wouldn't be keeping this up for very long.
Get up! Get up! Put it on, put it
So
on.
we found a track. Ian, is there anything we would do particularly because you found a track?
No,
Any
no.
way you would work it, or just carry on?
We just carry on. It's all just what you're trying to do during the course of any day's hunting is build up a sort of pattern of what's happening. And you've got to make decisions as you go along. I mean, down here, you see, you might turn uphill or downhill. And you're trying to, all the time, build up a picture of how the mink are behaving. And, for instance, that's a small mink, you see. And
A small one?
The tracks there of a small mink. So we find a mink down here and he's a great big one. Then the chances are there's another one about somewhere. See? So you might...
So the small prince would be a Jill? Is it a Jill they call them?
Bitch.
Bitch?
We call them bitches, yeah. And, yeah, that'd be a bitch this time of year. And this time
What's
of
the
year...
biggest one you've ever got? Do they run a really big?
That long. Hang on. I don't know, where's the mark? We don't weigh them, we measure them. About that sort of length.
That long? Good
We
God.
killed one last Saturday that long. Long as there.
That's about 2.5 foot from tip of the tail to his nose
Yeah.
end.
About 3 foot would be the biggest we've ever killed. They never get quite as heavy in the wild as they do in captivity. Because they have to live a harder life. They don't get fat, you
Got
know.
a hunt.
But they certainly get along, you know. You better get out here, I think, unless you want to get your giggling tack wet, as they say.
Giggling tack will not get wet today.
I wouldn't say that this early on.
Whoops.
Nearly made it. You know. Go on, boys. No. Whoop, lad. Whoop. No. No.
Every so often, the hounds are called up to see that none have gone on private hunting expeditions. And then it's off again at a nice, steady pace. But for a beast the size of a mink, there must be a million places to hide on this river. And after 5 or 6 miles of mud and water, you begin to creak a bit. And then suddenly...
So how long would you let them hunt around here then?
We'll either lose it or it's...
or we catch it,
or it's caught.
we catch it or it gets...
I mean, the dogs have not... They went mad there for a little while and then they've gone off.
Yeah, well, that was drag where a mink had been, you see. Probably last night running up and down. Could be very close. Could be very close to where we are. Sometimes they'll sit up in a tree looking at us.
Sit up in a tree? Yeah. Of course, they're a good climbing animal as well. Eat squirrel and everything, won't they, mink? No, look, Ian.
No, it's been there. It's a big rabbit bury at the back. You can see it's been up in there. They're hunting about, but they can't get... There's a line that runs... The line of scent that they were following runs along underneath the roots there. And they couldn't actually get in to hunt it. They were just sort of winding into it. But it's not there.
But there's likely to be one on the river somewhere.
Oh, well, there's one in there.
Well, that's
But
fine.
again, it's just out far ahead. Good up! Good old boys. Good old Gabby boy.
When they're a mink about, they don't waste any time, these lads. None of this resting or drinking or eating nonsense.
Cheerful, get on. Get on.
No wonder Cheerful keeps trying to work a ticket.
Good old man. Just a mud sticking to his feet. Michael. Careful. Come on, careful. Come on.
Yeah.
You want him back up there? Good boys. Fuck him like that.
Look at this, Ian. Killed by a mink. And the fisher. Not all that old, really.
Fisher.
Yeah, the only alternative is either it was the only known duck-fish fight in the history of the universe, or it was a mink. Yeah, anyway. Dad, Ranger! You looking at? Ranger! Where'd you see him, Ray? Okay.
The hounds know there's a mink in here somewhere, although we haven't seen it. But they're determined to get at it, even if it means eating the tree, bit by bit. It must be deep down in there somewhere, but with a bit of digging and a bit of banging, it may just bolt. The hounds are called off, and we all keep quiet and watch the river.
He's in the entrance, he's coming out.
You got the dog! You got the dog! All right, leave him alone, leave him alone.
After a short dash underwater, it's gone to ground again, but no one knows where exactly. Most kills take place after short hunts. The longer the hunt goes on, the more likely it is that the mink will escape. Sooner or later, he is bound to find a hole or a drain where he can't be got at. This one seems to have found a real fortress of roots and rock. Suddenly the mink bolted. I don't know why, but it was a bad mistake on his part. There's no escape now for it. It will either be shaken down from the tree and killed by the hounds, or a gun will be borrowed from a farm and it'll be shot. Farmers and fishermen want mink dead. They want an effective killing pack, which is what this is. Over 70 mink killed last season, and it could be more this year. There's no sentiment as far as mink are concerned. Down it comes, the hounds charge in and quickly kill it. All that remains is to replace the bank, call up the hounds, and on with the hunt. There must be more cartridges fired at wood pigeon in this country than at all the other game birds and animals put together. Most people start their shooting careers on pigeon. I did. There's almost always some farmer around who has been pestered by pigeons, and if you approach him right, you'll get a shot. Today I'm in Hampshire as the guest of the most famous pigeon shooter in the land, Archie. Archie's been a professional pigeon shooter since the 50s, and to make a living at that, you've got to be very, very good. He used to average over 20,000 birds a year protecting crops for a large network of farmers. He's got hip trouble now and needs crutches, so he's down to about 10,000 per annum. 10,000. I don't think I've seen that many, let alone shot them.
Hill for you.
It's a big one as well, Archie, isn't it? Is that a point of yours that you always put your bale hides on the top of the hill?
Well, it's not exactly on the top, because in fact, behind it there is the A30. So you can't be too close to that in case
we've got a motorway at the back of us here.
I know, it's rather like that in this part of the world. I'm afraid you very rarely get a place where you're completely away from traffic of some sort. Now, the reason it's there is a twofold. One, that one gets the decoys out on the brow, which is a good thing, i.e. they're easily seen. And the second is that I happen to know through years of experience, because I mean, I've shot this gun now for over 30 years, that the return flight, when they poof off in that direction, and they're coming back, it comes give and take where the bale hide is. That is the line of flight.
So it's important that you know the flight lines before you set up your bale hide.
Oh,
and know where it is.
absolutely. You've got to know the flight lines. And reconnaissance, well, there are two sorts of reconnaissance. And the first one is to find the field that they're actually feeding on. And for that, you must know your cropping. By that, I mean what the farmers are planting and when, and the sort of things the pigeons want to eat. So peas are obviously good news for pigeons, sort of caviar, if you like. Although beans and fact, I think, better still. And so when you know that they're planting them, that's where you've got to look. The bale hide is there, but it's nice for the wind today because the wind is in fact at our, will be at our backs. It does make it easier. But more important still, when you sight a hide, is to put it under what I call the pigeon traffic. Anything that comes in from that direction, which is a flight line, and from that direction, which is also a flight line, should, hopefully, be the decoy.
Pigeons could be feeding on anything, so bale hides are not the only kind Archie uses. You've got to be adaptable in this game. He can build a hide almost anywhere, like in this hedge, for instance.
I've used this hide before. It's an ordinary hedge hide, but I thought I'd show it to you just to give you the main points of a hedge hide. First and foremost, people are very inclined to make a sort of palace, a fortress, straight away. And they build it up and they build it up, and A, they can't see out of it, and indeed the pigeons can't see them. But the whole point of a hide like this is that you should be sitting down and looking through the cover, not over the top. It applies to any hide. Well, I tell you what, if you like to go and get behind there, you'll find one of those
I
tins
see what you
I've
mean.
got.
You're dead right, yeah.
Hmm?
You're right. You can see right through it.
You can see through it, but as long as you keep still, the pigeons won't see you. And also, there's another reason for not making an enormously grand hide straight away. You can be wrong. I can be wrong, and often am. Therefore, you may have to move.
How long will it take you to make one of these with one of them? A couple of minutes?
Certainly not more than 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah, I should think so.
But of course, again, there's one thing I haven't told you. Obviously, one has to be a bit careful of what sort of timber you cut. I had a young man out some time ago who knew quite a lot about pigeon shooting, and I put him down and I said, well, make your hide somewhere in this area, because he knew enough for me to not tell him exactly where. And at last he went and cut 4 young beech trees.
Oh, that's...
So that's bad news. So you have to be rather careful. Now, what you've got, this hide is made of elder, which is no valuable, and very easy to make hide out of, and also for the sticks for putting the pigeons on.
When there is no cover at all about, then a net hide is the only answer.
Now, there's only one thing about a net hide. You can put it up against a fence like we've got here, some sort of background. I've used them under an ordinary telegraph pole in the middle of a field. But what I don't think you can do with it is to put a net hide in the middle of a field, all on its own, and expect pigeons to come into it.
You want this as tight as I can get it?
Yes, it's reasonable, and then you can alter it when you get inside, you see? So you get it sort of right, but you must be able to look through it as opposed to over the top. That's vital.
Oh, yeah? That looks good.
Yeah, well, nothing wrong with that, as long as you keep still.
What about the background? We put a bit
Now,
across the
we've
back?
still got another net there, a great big enormous job, and that we have to put behind you as high as you can possibly get it. Because again, your background ought to be higher than your front. That's fine. That's him. There's nothing wrong with that at all. The other one you can keep spare for what I call eventualities.
That looks
you
pretty
get in
good.
there, and you've got the same tin, but it may be too high for this particular situation. You may have to sit in it sideways, like you have laid it sideways.
Yeah.
But the point is that you must be able to look through
Yes,
the
I can
hide
see.
rather than it.
Now for the real thing. I've never had much success decoying pigeons. I usually shoot them flighting into woods, so I'll be interested in Archie's layout. One obvious difference is that he uses dead pigeons rather than artificial decoys. But then he has an endless supply of dead pigeons. They do look a lot more natural, but there must be more to it than that.
Present the picture which the bird is expecting to see coming into feed in its chosen field. And that is what we're doing now, presenting that picture. And it's got to be right. In the old days, it was rather easier to present a picture. I have actually done it with insoles from a gumboot. But nowadays, pigeons are a little bit more, what's the word, sophisticated. And you've got to get it right. And you've got to keep it right. So they've got to be give and take 35, 30, perhaps sometimes 40 yards away from the hide. And there's a good reason for that. We're using 6 or 7 shots, which is the normal one uses for pigeons. The pattern is at its best at give and take 35 yards. So if the pigeon comes in over your decoys and you know it's there for 35 yards away and you go and miss it, it's not the fault of the cartridge.
Nor the pigeon.
Huh?
Nor the pigeon.
Nor the pigeon, exactly. So
Well,
therefore one uses, and therefore when we're in the hive, we'll let the pigeons come in over the decoys and we know we're in the right place. And we're going to put these 4 right up almost to the edge of the field. Now what will happen is that, particularly for the birds that are coming from behind, they'll see those, they'll swing round into the wind, and it is pigeon etiquette, apparently, to fly over, no, not to fly over, to overfly their pals and land on the other side. So if we do that, and they keep on going that way, there's your hide, you've got a nice, easy chance.
They overfly their pals.
You won't find them, they do land outside sometimes, but a lot of them would actually overfly. And
So what you're doing is making a nail which leads them into you.
Absolutely. Now I also do another thing. I don't do it so much now, but I have done it.
You just set this one up.
I leave a hole in the middle of the decoys, which I call the killing ground. Very nasty expression, but it works. Because there are no other pigeons to overfly, so they're natural make for the hole. We have, in fact, got one, as you can see.
Yes, in the middle
There's
there.
a space of ground. That's why I put the sack down here.
So when the pigeons come in, they would see a group there, a group here, and they would go
say,
for the...
well, I'm going in the middle. It's straight in front of your hide. Bonko.
Bonko.
Very nasty, this pigeon shooting occasionally.
Coming in lovely. A little left and right here, Archie, for a bit of luck. If they swing in this way. One.
Good girl. Get on. Get on. Get on. Baba, get on. Good girl. Good girl.
She knows,
She
where
knows the
she's
one
going.
that she's
Isn't
got
it
to
amazing that she's gone straight to the one?
Come on then. Good girl.
Gone straight to the one. I wonder how she knew that.
Well, she's picked
I
up.
mean, she couldn't scent it, could
I
she?
hate to think how many poor things she's had to pick up in her lifetime. So she's picked up quite. Come along.
Yeah. Come on, Baba. Yeah, dead. Dead.
Well, what we've got to do is, having got into the hide and put the decoys out, one hopes in the right way, is to kill some pigeons and see if they're coming in, and then build up your picture, which is very important, the compound interest side of it. The more you get your gun off, the more you kill, the more you put out, the better it gets. He's on the ground. He's hold down. Should have been 2.
There was quite a few there, actually,
Yeah.
but they were coming in.
Never mind. They'll come.
We're in a line of flight here, obviously, which you spotted and put out. If I was to pick a line of flight on what we've seen while we've been sat here, I would have said right in the middle of that main road down there. Everything seems to be crossing over between 32 trees right over the road.
I'm sure, exactly, but it just happens to be a little law in this country. You may not shoot within 50 or whatever it is yards of a main road. Got him. Well done, you.
It might surprise some people to find that there are people who are professional pigeon shooters like yourself.
Well, not very many, I don't think. I mean, there may have been 1 or 2 others, but I don't know that there are. There was a chap in the Midlands at one moment, but I think he packed it in rather wisely. It's what I might call a labour of love rather than a financial sort of
Bonanza.
success. A bonanza, exactly. A way of life, if you like. It's rather like dealing with the small shoot side of it, which I also do. With something you're keen on, something which you've taught yourself or have been taught by other people. But pity didn't get that one down. It was a good one,
I thought I might have got him, Archie, but I didn't. I heard.
Get him?
What's the most you've shot in a day? You did mention it before. Was it 500 and something?
550.
550.
But that was too many, and I never want to do it again. In fact, I would have been completely incapable of doing it again, A, physically and B, mentally, because I wasn't physically tired because I was much younger in those days. But I was mentally very tired indeed after it, because it was quite a strain, firing, I think, about 650 cartridges and killing 550 pigeons. But I would have killed a good 100 more if I'd been able to get more cartridges. I ran out twice. And then I had to take the dog, which is this one here, Baba's great-grandpa, I think, I'm not certain, but called Simba, anyway, out of a hide, which was a bale hide, because he got shell-shocked, literally. And I mean, I fired so many shots at him, he's sort of lying on the bottom of the hide. So
would it not be exhausted going to fetch the pigeons? It probably was exhausted going to fetch the pigeons.
Well, I didn't hardly bother that day. 3/4 of the way through, the whole field looked as if I'd been plucking chickens. It was white, and they took no notice whatsoever.
That's the feathers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always let me understand that, you know, when you dress a pigeon to put it out, and you put it down and you peg it out, that all the loose feathers around want picking up. You say it doesn't matter.
Quite. No,
well, I'll listen to you.
Another old wives' tale, I'm afraid. I promise you, it simply doesn't matter. They couldn't care less about the feathers. And that day, it was absolutely white. And they took no notice whatsoever. And the last sort of 3/4 of the night, because I thought it was January, don't forget, I took the 2 front bales down and just sat right in the open, and they still came in. So I wanted to test it. A little far, but not all that far. It took... Look, he's in the corn.
Here's the
There's a
first
nice
one.
one for the day. Attaboy, very nice. That's the nicest shot you've done today.
Oh, I can shoot them when I want.
Good shot. Bah. Get on. Get on. Get out. Get on.
Amazing dog, this goes exactly the right one, you know. How old is she?
She's getting on. She's 9.5 now, which is long, getting on for a dog, you know. She's pretty fit, though, and well, she's jolly lucky. She probably does more work than most dogs, or more than any dog in Great Britain, I should think.
She's like all good Labradors. She just does it very steadily and sedately.
So she's...
No aggravation. Come on. Come on.
I think that's not going to fall in your nut in a minute.
Dead.
Drop
Good
it back.
girl. Hey,
Get out. Get on. Back. Get on. Yeah. Yes, that's the one. Good girl. Da-da. Yeah, well, we will. Yeah.
Come on.
Come on. Girl.
Good girl. Dead. Good girl.
I'll get that one in the corner of the dog.
I know where it is.
The damage that pigeons do to crops in this country runs into millions of pounds every year. The severe winter of 1962-3 reduced the pigeon population, but numbers have increased steadily since then. Our countryside, with its nice mixture of arable and woodland, seems to favour the wood pigeon. We certainly have far more than they have in Europe. Good for the shooting man, but lousy for the farmer. The pigeon succeeds because he'll eat anything. Wheat, barley, rape, clover, brassicas. even turnip tops in hard weather. He's seldom stuck for a meal. In areas where they're shot a lot, pigeons are becoming a real challenge. They're getting very smart. You've got to work at it to succeed, or else get an expert like Archie to show you how it's done. We've not done badly, about 20 in half an hour, and they're still coming in.
Come here. Now, what I'm going to do is, when these pigeons, as they are all too often, bypassing you right or left, I'm going to chuck a pigeon out of the hide, simulating, although we're not in a net hide or a hedge hide under a tree, we're trying to simulate a pigeon dropping off a tree to feed with its pals. It is a bit complicated, but you've got to do it at the right moment. And the right moment is simply when the bird you throw, not yourself, but the bird you throw is not backgrounded. Now, if you can imagine yourself in a hedge hide or a net against a hedge, and there's a high hedge behind you, or edge of a wood, or whatever you like, and the birds are coming, bypassing you on the way out to your left or to your right, if you throw the pigeon then, it's no good. They can't see it because there's background. But if you wait till they've almost gone out of your sight, just as they cross the hedge you're in, and then throw it, the movement will catch their eyes, and they will then turn in and come into the decoys. Not always. Not always, by any means, but it's well worth throwing, and I tell you when it works particularly well is with young and foolish pigeons in September and October.
Well, there's a few up on the left if you're throwing out one, we may just see.
Right. I can't see them.
Coming up the side up there, look.
And just a lob, like that.
Well, they're coming this way. Whether they saw the bird or not, I don't know.
Hang on.
Missed it.
Yes, the boy was sitting in the decoys.
I didn't see the one sitting there, but I was watching the two coming in.
Well done, yeah. You got him?
Yeah.
Bah,
There you are.
get out.
I'm coming round.
Yes, you will. Right. Ah! Here. Here, nowhere out there, you silly old girl. Steady now. Steady now. I got you. I see that one.
Come on, Bubba. Two.
Two?
Aye, but he's gone off onto the field, that one. It's all right. It won't affect the dog. I'm not dog on the ball.
Come on, then.
Yeah, right high.
Come on. One for me and one for you.
And these are cooked in orange.
They're cooked in a sort of sauce made with orange, yes.
Look delicious.
And there's spuds and cauliflower.
A little
If you
cauliflower.
like, I should advise you to have a little bit of this rowan and apple jelly, goes very well with it.
Rowan and apple jelly.
Yeah.
Let me try this pigeon.
You try that now, Jack. See what it's like.
We've got a fair walk and it's a fair way off.
Right, yes.
There'll be a bit more wind than there is here out there.
Oh, yes, there'll be a little bit, but whether it's enough, well, who can tell? But still, the great thing is it's lovely being out on the shore again, and that's what really counts.
How do the geese come today?
Well, they'll be too high, I think, but very often on the worst mornings you get a chance. You go out on a splendid morning and nothing comes, you never know. But it never matters to me whether I get a shot or not, as long as we see a few. Well, it's getting light. We're just about in time.
Right, I'll just put this case away, Arthur, and we'll get off.
Yeah.
No, but the forecast says that it will freshen later.
Most 72-year-olds would prefer to be happily tucked up in bed on a cold October morning like this. Not Arthur Cadman. A shooting man and naturalist all his life, he still feels the urge to get out on the salt marshes in pursuit of that noble bird, the wild goose. I understand that. Ever since my first wild-fowling trip to the north of Scotland, many years ago, I've had reoccurring bouts of goose fever. The eastern farmlands of Scotland, from Perthshire to Inverness, are the winter feeding grounds for huge numbers of greylag and pinkfeet, which arrive from Iceland every autumn. But getting a shot at them isn't easy. A wild goose chase is exactly that, a very chancy business. But there's nothing like it for excitement.
This point's a very good place, and I think we want one in that channel and one tucked in under the saltings, either there or there, which you take your choice and I'll go in the other place.
Well, I'll go down in the back. It's easier
Yes.
for me. You don't have to get down on your knees
That's
in there.
right, and I'll go in there with better cover for Honey and myself.
Okay.
Righto, well, good luck,
Give
Jack.
us a whistle if you want me for anything.
Yeah. Come on, Honey. Here we are, honey. That's a good place for you, isn't it? No, yeah. Get down. Get down. Sit.
Wild geese like to spend their nights on big open stretches of water, like estuaries or lochs or even the sea. Then at dawn they flight in to feed in the fields. The wildfowler must study their feeding patterns and then try and intercept them along the shoreline or on the salt marshes. But just getting below them isn't enough. You need a bit of help from the weather. The perfect dawn for the goose hunter is one with a freezing force-10 gale and maybe a bit of snow. The worse it is, the better he likes it. For in these conditions, the geese are forced to fly low and he has a chance of a shot. Here they come, but what a height. We've no chance if they stay up there. I don't think we're going to get a shot. Although you keep hoping as every new skein appears. Wildfowling is like that, more blanks than success. We may just as well sit and watch.
I've shot pigeons with this, and he stood in the gate and just stood still like that.
Oh, yes. And geese sometimes.
Yeah. Pigeons particularly, it's terrific for.
If geese have got their eyes on something, say 300 yards beyond you, other geese on the field, or they're looking to settle, they'll often be very stupid and come right over when, as you say, you're standing bolt upright by a gate. But one of the things about wildfowlers today that annoys me enormously is these chaps who walk out onto the mud and they stand bolt upright And just occasionally they do get a shot with a stupid lot of geese, but 9 times out of 10, the geese sheer off, and because they're frustrated, they then shoot at them at 100 yards and wound them. I've seen that happen so often. It's a sign of a really bad, inefficient wildfowler doing that.
Oh, I sat there. It's nice to know when your camouflage is right.
The flight was more or less over, but it was too beautiful a morning to go home. So Arthur took me on a tour of the Firth. We might find a better spot for tomorrow's flight.
You were talking about the Solway. I know a chap who'd been coming up for about 10 years.
He's coming back from there now, Arthur, look. Oh, no, they're not going here.
And he never had a shot at a goose, let alone shot one. It's like,
20 years, some people have been going there.
Aye, well, it's a very pleasant little point, this. When the pigeons are feeding here, they come down and drink. They like the salt. It's a very good point for pigeons.
Where are the seals up here?
Well, at low tide, you'll see them on the sandbanks out there. You can't see them now at high tide.
You've got to be a good naturalist to be a successful wildfowler. You do a lot more watching than shooting.
I think this is more important than the gun, because for a beginner, he's got to spend a lot of time looking and watching long before he lets a gun off to know what he's shooting. And these days, in the old days, of course, it was what's hit is history and what's missed is mystery, but that's not good enough today. With the last year's Wildlife and Countryside Act, we've got to have a good knowledge of birds. It's all right to know them in a book, but you never see them like that on the shore. You've got to know their wing beats and their different ways of flying and recognize them. Basically, of course, of the ducks, it's the mallard, widgeon and teal are the 3 main quarry species. And anything that isn't that, if you're not a good ornithologist, you better leave well alone.
There are several species that we can shoot and several species we can't. Would you give,
right.
What are they?
The main quarry ones are grey legs and pink feet, and in the south, the European white front. But the Greenland white front, which occurs in Scotland, is now protected. There's only about 12,000 total population. So one's got to recognise them. Very different call, and that's the way to...
How would you recognise them mainly by the call?
Well, when they're a hell of a long way off, yes, you can... the calls are completely different. You see, a pink is... I'm not very good at doing it, but it's...
Go on, do it for me.
Wink, 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 wink. And the greys are more... And if you hear them going... that means they've seen you.
Is it?
Yes, that's the warning note. Always, if you hear that, you've had it.
When you're out in these wild and beautiful surroundings, it doesn't seem to matter whether you get a goose or not. Just being here is enough.
How many species would you get up here, Arthur? You told me before you used to have some is it barnacles you had up here?
Well, no, you don't get barnacles here. There were Brent here many years ago, yes. But they were wiped out by an oil slick in World War I, I'm told. But when you see geese going like that across there, you can understand how people get goose fever.
Well, I had goose fever. I mean, there's no other excitement like when you've got a skein of geese coming towards you and you keep saying, keep coming, keep coming.
That's right.
Don't deviate, keep coming, keep coming.
That's right.
And then the instant you stand up, you think, I hope they haven't seen me now and they're just in the right position.
That's right.
I can imagine people going mad over shooting geese.
Oh, God, yes. It's like buck fever with deer, isn't it? Yeah, the same sort of thing.
Right,
But the reverse side of the coin is all these chaps who take stupid shots at geese and wound them, you know, it's a bloody shame, that. And really, that's what a magnum is for, not to kill a hell of a long shot, but to make quite sure that a fair shot is dead and not wounded. That's the great thing, I think. And
we haven't seen any pink feet today yet.
No.
Are any up here?
Yes, a few, especially early on. There's always a lot of pinks arrive here first. And then in March, when they're going back to Iceland, then a lot of pinks gather here. It's one of the jumping off points. And you can see a big lot of them. And of course, the pinks nest on the central plateau in Iceland, and that's why they appear first in the autumn and go back last in the spring. And the greys nesting at a lower level, they don't need to go back. I mean, they don't need to come here till later, and they go back a bit earlier in the spring. It's very interesting the way these things work out. I once saw the most marvellous sight. There was a little lot of pinks migrating, and a peregrine came out of the sky and knocked one out of the middle of them. Wonderful sight.
A peregrine would take a goose?
Pardon?
A peregrine would take a goose?
Oh, yes. Even a grey lag, it'll knock it down.
Will it?
Remarkable, yes. You wouldn't think so.
I wouldn't think so, the size they are.
Yeah.
You could spend weeks on these firths and never get near a goose. There's just too much shoreline, and you'll need local knowledge of tide and mud conditions. We should have been heading back now, but I wanted to see around the next bay. Arthur said it wasn't worth it, but I insisted. I wish I hadn't. Getting a bit deep.
Getting sticky.
Hazards of the business, isn't it?
What?
That's one of the hazards of the business.
Well, it isn't really, because I'm not such a bloody fool that I go
Where it's wet.
That hasn't happened to me once in 20 years.
We got out, and Arthur forgave me, just. But it shows how careful you have to be. Breakfast now, and maybe a little sleep. We'll leave the geese in peace and dream about tomorrow. Our prayers are answered. There's a really good gale blowing this morning. Arthur had made a few phone calls round his neighbours, and here we were on a friend's farm where the geese had been feeding yesterday. I feel really confident today. I think we've got it just right. Every time I come out after geese, I feel confident, and yet I would think I'm successful about one morning in 4. There's no doubt you have to be a bit mad to be a wildfowler.